All right, let's just jump right in. You have this vision in your head right here. You're on Hamilton Island, Australia.
Hmm.
You've seen those screensaver images, the ones of Whitehaven Beach with the swirling white sands against that impossible turquoise water.
The ones that look almost photoshopped, but they're real.
Exactly. And maybe you're picturing that perfect Australian experience,
Right.
having breakfast and there's a koala nearby, or you're sipping something cold by a perfectly placed infinity pool. It's that aspirational Great Barrier Reef paradise fantasy.
It is. It's a breathtaking fantasy, and it's built on these incredible, incredible visuals. But then we have to talk about the reality, especially when we look at the requests that you sent in, which was, let's be honest, an extremely optimistic $50 a day backpacker budget.
A very bold ask.
A bold ask, and that's where the fantasy just, it hits the very hard and very expensive paved ground of the Whitsundays. I mean, it's almost impossibly optimistic. It's financially delusional if your goal is to actually stay on Hamilton Island itself.
And that, right there, is the exact conflict we are here to figure out today. Our mission for this whole deep dive is to cut through all of that beautiful, glossy marketing hype. We're going to analyze the logistics. We're going to break down the granular day-to-day costs and really figure out, once and for all, is Hamilton Island genuinely worth that substantial price tag?
Or is it just a trap?
Or is it just an incredibly convenient, beautiful, and very expensive logistical trap? And I think crucially, we're focusing on some pretty sophisticated trap avoidance strategies, specifically for that mid-range traveler. Because, as you said, the backpacker, well, they're going to need a completely different plan.
A whole different universe, really. And to frame this whole conversation, I think we need to introduce three really crucial contrarian surprises right at the top.
Right.
These are the things the brochures, they conveniently leave out, and they fundamentally define what the Hamilton Island experience is actually like.
Okay, let's hear them. Surprise number one.
I think this is the most important one, that sort of philosophical jolt you get when you arrive. Hamilton Island is not the rugged, wild, untouched tropical island you see in the movies.
Right, it's not Cast Away.
Not at all. It is a paved, meticulously manicured, and completely corporate-owned town. It functions less like a remote paradise and much more like a high-end subtropical suburb with palm trees. It's very, very controlled.
And that control, I'm guessing that leads to the next surprise?
It leads directly to surprise number 2, which is completely counterintuitive. Staying on Hamilton Island might actually make it harder to see the best parts of the Whitsundays and the reef.
Wait, how does that work?
Well, if you don't plan your tours and your logistics with almost military precision, if you're trying to book things last minute, you could genuinely spend more time waiting in lines or for transfers than you do actually snorkeling or sitting on Whitehaven Beach.
Yeah.
The island is a hub, you see, but hubs create friction. They create bottlenecks.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. A logistics hub, not a relaxation hub. And surprise number 3.
It's about that perceived charm, the famous Gulf buggies.
Oh, everyone wants the buggy. You see them all over Instagram.
Everyone does. You picture yourself zipping around, wind in your hair, feeling like a local. The reality, they are a major logistics nightmare. They're a genuine traffic hazard, and most importantly, they are a huge financial trap.
So you're saying ditch the buggy.
You will absolutely save money and probably a good chunk of your sanity if you ditch that expectation entirely and just rely on walking or the island's free shuttle service.
Wow. Okay.
And all three of these surprises, they all trace their origins back to one single central economic problem. And it impacts every single price, every expectation you have. It's the monopoly effect.
The monopoly effect. Let's unpack that.
We can't overstate this. One single family, the Oatley family, owns essentially everything: the hotels, most of the restaurants, the tour operations, even the airport itself.
The airport, too.
The airport, too. And what's so fascinating from an economic perspective is that this kind of centralized captive ownership, it just inherently eliminates competition. It leads directly to inflated prices and really effective price fixing on everything from a cocktail to a stick of deodorant.
So, okay, here's our overall claim then that's going to guide this whole deep dive. Hamilton Island is, well, it's actively hostile to the very existence of a tight budget backpacker.
Actively hostile. I like that.
But the mid-range traveler, the one working with that challenging but maybe achievable 250 Australian dollars a day, they can absolutely find a sweet spot, but only only if they acknowledge this monopoly effect and execute a very specific, very disciplined set of trap avoidance strategies.
Strategies we're about to detail. So let's jump in and look at the logistics, the things that make this place so unique.
Yeah, let's start with the context.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's start by establishing that core context and managing those initial expectations. Because when people hear Hamilton Island, I think what they're often really hearing is the whisper of convenience.
Exactly. It's like this convergence of the White Lotus effect in travel, that aspirational, Instagram-perfect luxury, combined with the modern traveler's absolute demand for instant gratification. Zero friction. People want easy luxury. They want to fly directly onto an island, grab a cocktail, and just bypass hours of travel complexity.
And Hamilton Island has the one singular superpower that caters directly to that desire.
Which is?
It's the only island in the entire Great Barrier Reef region, and really one of the very few in all of Australia, that has its own commercial jet airport.
Yeah, it's the game changer.
That accessibility is everything. The ability to fly a 737 directly onto the island and arrive without dealing with mainland ferries or long, choppy transfers, that is non-negotiable for high-end travelers or people who are short on time. You land, you're there. That convenience is a massive, massive premium.
But it also drives the expectation, right? It makes you think the island is going to be this serene, exclusive, quiet, luxury destination. You're fueled by those beautiful social media images of secluded infinity pools.
Especially the ones you see from the Yacht Club villas, or the big one, Qualia.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the reality often just smashes that expectation to pieces.
It really does.
If you go during the peak dry season, which is basically the Australian winter, say June to August, or even worse, during any school holidays, the island is intensely crowded.
You're not floating alone in your private pool, not even close.
No. The main pool areas are packed. You are actively fighting for a deck chair at the main resort pool, while dozens of families and, excited tour groups and honeymooners are all occupying every single available piece of space. It's an efficient crowd for sure, but it is definitely a crowd.
And that density, that feeling of being crowded, it ties directly back to our suburb with palm trees idea. People expect this quaint, sleepy, organic village vibe. But Hamilton Island is a dense, highly developed resort town, and a lot of it was built out during the 1980s boom. You can see it in the architecture.
Oh, you can definitely see it. The concrete high-rise apartment blocks, I mean, they're well-maintained, but they look distinctly, mid-century modern.
And you have a bustling commercial marina that's just full of expensive yachts, a functional bakery, and the absolutely crucial IGA supermarket. The whole place is completely sanitized.
It's so true. If you've ever been to one of those intensely curated, highly commercial places in the U.S., like Disney Springs, or maybe a high-end, self-contained outlet mall,
That's the vibe.
that is much closer to the transactional, controlled vibe than a wild, tropical retreat.
So let's break down who this actually works for and who it really disappoints, because the demographics here are essential for planning.
Okay, so the mid-range comfort traveler, what are their challenges?
For them, the inventory itself creates problems. You might be looking for a small, independent, or sort of boutique hotel, that charming B&B feel.
Yeah, something with character.
Exactly. But you're largely left choosing between these monolithic high-rise hotels like the Reef View or these massive holiday rental properties. That personalized boutique feel is just...
Yeah.
It's largely missing from the main offerings, unless, of course, you're willing to pay that exponential price jump to get into the true luxury tier.
And for the backpacker adventure traveler.
Oh, the disappointment is immediate and existential. The adventure vibe is just non-existent, and we need to be crystal clear on this point. There are 0 hostels on Hamilton Island.
None. Not one.
Not a single one. The social scene is completely dominated by young families, older, affluent couples, and honeymooners. You're not going to find a community or a cheap social gathering here. You'll find politely quiet families and couples driving golf buggies, trying to avoid the sun.
It's funny you bring up the architecture again. Seeing those high-rises makes you realize this whole place was designed as a highly efficient machine. A machine for moving high volumes of affluent travelers in and out. It's a beautifully paved machine, sure, but it's still a machine.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It prioritizes function over atmosphere, which is exactly why it excels as a destination for families, but it fails completely as a traditional backpacker haven.
So let's talk about that moment of arrival, because it's a brilliant study in contrasts. The actual fly-in experience is, it's spectacular.
It really is.
The runway is famously built on reclaimed land, so as you're making your final descent, you have this stunning, vibrant turquoise water visible on both sides of the plane. It genuinely makes you gasp.
But then that beauty gives way almost immediately to what we call the logistics jolt.
The logistics jolt, I like that.
You get off the plane, you grab your bags, which, to be fair, are often delivered incredibly quickly, and you're immediately funneled into this highly efficient but entirely impersonal cattle drive. If you're staying at any of the major spots,
Yeah.
like the Reef View Hotel or the Palm Bungalows or even some of the bigger apartments, the shuttle buses are just waiting there. And they move you so quickly from the tarmac to the lobby. It's the definition of logistical efficiency, but it completely strips away any sense of a relaxed, romantic island welcome.
And before you've even had a chance to absorb the view from your balcony, you meet the island's true residents, the demanding and frequently aggressive residents.
The sulfur-crested cockatoos.
The cockatoos.
They are magnificent birds, visually stunning with that bright yellow crest. But they are nature's organized crime syndicates with wings.
Ah, that's a perfect description.
They are huge, they are completely unafraid of humans, and their intelligence is.
Yeah.
It's shocking. They don't just beg for food, they calculate how to steal it.
I remember one source describing a group of them working together. One would perch up high to create a distraction,
Yeah, look out.
while another would land silently on the table and methodically use its beak like a tool, like it was using a can opener.
Absolutely. The specific anecdote we have to share is the one where a cockatoo was seen unzipping a traveler's backpack on Cat's Eye Beach in less than 4 seconds.
No way, 4 seconds.
Unzipped it, extracted a packet of chips, and flew away before the traveler even knew their bag was open. They understand mechanical fasteners, they understand zippers, and they are teaching their young how to do it. You are constantly on guard.
And that, right there, provides the ultimate immediate lesson in the captive market realization.
It does.
In that moment, whether you're dodging a golf buggy or guarding your lunch from a bird, you realize you are on the rock.
Yeah.
You cannot escape. There's no driving down the road for 10 minutes to a cheaper town or a rival bakery or a different environment. You are entirely reliant on the infrastructure and the prices set by the island's single owner.
And this feeling of being controlled by the convenience is contrasted, thankfully, with just undeniable beauty of the surroundings. When you look out over Cat's Eye Beach, especially in the evening or when there's low wind, the water is incredibly flat and calm. It's definitely a wading beach, a safe, shallow, family-friendly expanse.
Not a surfing beach.
No, not a surfing beach at all. But it provides these beautiful, peaceful moments of genuine tranquility that almost make you forget the logistics jolt.
Almost. That tranquility lasts until you step off the perfectly paved sidewalk and nearly get hit by a speeding rental golf buggy.
Yes.
We have to talk about the chaos of convenience. Everyone drives these electric carts, and the whole island, despite being so small, becomes a traffic jam. People are on holiday, which means they throw caution to the wind and often don't stick to standard road rules, creating a real hazard for pedestrians.
The traffic is real, and the source material really stresses that the driving can be aggressive and often erratic. The sheer number of buggies, which are essential for moving luggage up the island's steep hills, means you're constantly navigating bottlenecks, people driving while looking at maps, or just going way too fast on these narrow paths.
So it creates this immediate, low-level need for extra insurance on your holiday. It's an island where the main way to get around is actively inefficient and surprisingly dangerous.
Which completely contradicts that serene luxury image.
Okay, now let's open those metaphorical spreadsheets. Let's get into the hard financial constraints. This is the part that really defines whether a trip here is even viable. We set 2 target budgets. The backpacker at $50 Australian a day and the mid-range traveler at $150 to $250 a day.
We have to be mercilessly clear about the $50 budget. It is a mathematical impossibility if you want to stay on the island. Let's just prove why this isn't just tight, but completely delusional for an overnight stay.
Okay, lay it out. Start with accommodation. What's the absolute rock bottom cheapest you can do?
The absolute cheapest room on the island, and this is assuming you book way outside of peak season, is the entry-level garden view room at the Reef View Hotel, or maybe one of the basic Palm Bungalows.
And
These average $350 to $500 Australian dollars per night. Let's just take an optimistic average, say $400.
Okay.
If you manage to split that minimum cost with a travel partner, you are still at $200 per person per night, just for a standard bed. You have immediately exceeded your $50 daily budget by 300%.
And there are no loopholes here. No secret, cheap Airbnbs hidden away, no local guest
And
houses.
as we established, zero hostels.
Zero hostels. So the verdict for the tight budget backpacker is swift and definitive. The only viable option is to stay in Airlie Beach on the mainland.
Correct. Airlie Beach has hostels. It has budget accommodation you can find for $30 to $50 a night. But even using that mainland option requires a massive financial commitment just to visit Hamilton Island for a day.
Because of the ferry.
The round-trip ferry on cruise Whitsundays costs about 60 to 70 Australian dollars per person. So the backpacker busts their entire $50 daily budget and then some before they've even paid for lunch on the island.
So if you're a true backpacker, you're either staying on the mainland and taking a very expensive day trip, or you're doing one of those multi-day sailing trips out of Airlie. Hamilton Island itself is simply not a player in the budget travel economy.
Precisely. Now, let's pivot to the mid-range squeeze. That 150 to 250 per person per day. This is the zone where it becomes viable, but it demands military-level discipline and pre-planning.
Okay, hang on. I want to challenge that. You said the Reef View Hotel is $400 a night. If I'm splitting that, that's $200 per person. So that leaves me exactly $50 for food and fun. Isn't that actually a pretty strong sweet spot for mid-range? Why is that still proceed with caution?
Because of the monopoly effect on everything you consume and the sheer speed at which that remaining $50 evaporates.
Yeah.
Let's create a fictional daily budget for that person. They've got $50 left over.
Let's do the math.
Okay. You wake up, you need a coffee. A standard barista-made coffee on the island is $6 to $7.
Right.
You need a bottle of water from a shop outside the IGA. That's $4. You grab a quick bakery pastry for a mid-morning snack. That's another $10.
So we're $21 already.
You walk down to the marina. You're feeling hot. You decide you deserve one beer. That's $12 to $14. So now you're at $35 gone, and all you've had is a coffee, a pastry, and one beer. You still haven't eaten lunch or dinner.
So the $50 is gone by 4 p.m. without any real substantial meals. The math just doesn't support a mid-range traveler eating at restaurants 3 times a day.
Financially ruinous is the term we used, and it stands. A standard main meal at a restaurant like Manta Ray or Cockatoo is consistently priced between $35 and $45. You want a cocktail at sunset? That's $22. If you try to eat 2 standard restaurant meals a day, you are spending $80 to $90 per person, almost doubling your available funds.
Which brings us to the crucial survival mechanism, the one thing that makes this viable. We're calling it the fill hack. Utilizing the IGA supermarket is not optional. It is the essential strategy for survival on Hamilton Island.
The IGA is your savior. It is surprisingly well-stocked, which it has to be, given the number of people on the island. The mid-range traveler must book accommodation that includes a fully functional kitchen. You need the ability to prepare your own food.
So walk us through this hack, step by step. What do you buy, and what do you avoid when you walk into that IGA?
You have to treat it like a mandatory stop right after you check in. Go there immediately. Focus on shelf-stable items, prepackaged salads, deli meat, bread, canned goods, quick-cook pasta.
What do you avoid?
You have to avoid the trap of fresh produce. Because every single fresh item has to be flown or ferried in, the markups on fruit, vegetables, and especially organic items are just exorbitant. We saw prices 50 to 100% higher than on the mainland.
So you're making sandwiches for lunch?
Sandwiches for lunch, pasta for dinner.
And you're saving that one splurge for a nice dinner out.
You have to. You must cook your own breakfast and lunch. If you can limit your daily food costs to around $30 by cooking 2 meals and only splurging on a few drinks or that one nice dinner, you free up the remaining funds for activities. That strategy is the difference between genuine misery and having a bit of indulgence.
But even with that discipline, the activity costs force these massive financial sacrifices. The main draw is the Whitehaven Beach tour.
And that tour costs $120 to $150. You want to see the outer reef, maybe see Hart Reef from a plane? Those tours start at $250 and go way up.
So the calculus is clear.
It is. If you book a Whitehaven Beach tour, you are sacrificing your nice restaurant dinner for 2 or maybe even 3 nights. The mid-range budget forces these painful trade-offs. You're constantly balancing a beautiful experience with a necessary financial cut somewhere else.
And just for context, let's briefly touch on the true luxury tier. You mentioned Qualia.
Qualia starts at 1,500 Australian dollars a night. It goes up from there. But here's the interesting thing, that bizarre value gap. The mid-range traveler feels constantly overpriced and a bit let down. But the true luxury tier actually delivers exactly what it promises. The privacy, the space, the exclusivity, the high-end service. They are paying the appropriate extreme cost for the monopoly effect and the convenience, and they get what they pay for.
It's the middle ground that's been optimized for maximum profit, which leaves the customer feeling a little shortchanged.
Precisely.
Let's delve further into the specific logistics traps that consistently snag the unprepared traveler, starting with trap number 1, the buggy Hunger Games.
I think this is the most common failure of expectation. People land and they fully expect to just, stroll off the plane and rent a golf buggy, feeling free to explore the island at their leisure. It's part of the fantasy.
And the reality?
The reality is brutal. Buggies sell out weeks, sometimes months in advance during peak periods. They're also expensive, over $100 a day, which just cuts deeply into that $250 mid-range budget.
So what happens if you arrive without a booking?
You are immediately forced to walk up very steep hills, and Hamilton Island has significant vertical elevation and high 90% humidity. Or you're entirely reliant on the Free Island shuttle bus system.
Now, if the shuttle is efficient, why is skipping the buggy a good idea for a healthy traveler?
The shuttle is efficient, but it runs on fixed routes and a set schedule. Skipping the buggy saves you $100 a day. $100? That buys you your nice dinner, or it funds half your Whitehaven trip.
So the fix is tactical.
It is. If you are a healthy mid-range traveler, use the free shuttle and walk. Save yourself significant money. However, and this is a big however, if you have any mobility issues, the buggy moves from a convenience to an absolute necessity.
And in that case?
In that case, the booking must be made the same day you confirm your flight and accommodation. Waiting even 1 week can mean disaster and a miserable, constrained trip.
Okay, trap number 2 is the dreaded restaurant roulette. This is a direct, agonizing consequence of that island monopoly we talked about.
Exactly. You have this huge influx of high-paying travelers, but only a limited fixed number of restaurant seats. The nice dinner spots, Cocachu, Romano's, places like that, they can't just scale up their capacity. We saw countless people getting turned away every single night because they failed to understand this island-specific scarcity.
So what is the extreme but necessary solution to avoid eating instant noodles every night?
The solution requires extreme foresight. If you are traveling during peak dry season, the Australian winter, or any school holidays, your dinners must be booked 3 months out.
3 months. You're not exaggerating.
No hyperbole here. This is a necessary pre-planning step. And to be clear on the 3 months out rule, you need to set a calendar reminder, often for exactly 90 days prior to your intended reservation date. You need to check the specific booking portal, usually it's OpenTable or the Hamilton Island website, at 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, the moment they release new inventory.
And if you don't do that?
If you fail to do this, you'll be showing up at 7 p.m. to disappointment. And your only guaranteed dinner will consist of highly marked up instant noodles from the IGA.
That is a brutal requirement for a relaxing holiday, but critical information.
And finally, trap number 3, which specifically hurts anyone trying to manage their budget by day tripping. The ferry timing trap.
Right. If you're staying in the affordable zone of Airlie Beach and relying on the cruise Whitsundays ferry for a day visit, the last departure back to the mainland is typically around 5:30 p.m., depending on the season.
And when you're forced to leave by 5:30, you miss the crucial part of the island experience. You miss the iconic Hamilton moment. The crowds start to thin out around 4 p.m., the heat drops, the air becomes golden. You miss the spectacular sunset at One Tree Hill, a famous, essential viewing point.
So day trippers only see the island at its worst, really.
They only experience it in the harsh, congested high noon humidity and the maximum crowds. The fix is to accept that day tripping is functional. You'll get your beach time, maybe a short hike, but you won't get the vibe or the romantic golden hour that makes the place so visually famous.
A quick final note on essential gear and the cost of being unprepared. Connectivity is fine. 4G is generally reliable, which is good for booking that 90-day dinner reservation. But you must, absolutely must, bring your own high-quality, reef-safe sunscreen and a quality insect repellent from the mainland.
Otherwise, you pay the stupid tax.
The stupid tax.
We saw specific product markups that were just shocking. A standard tube of reef-safe sunscreen that cost $15 on the mainland was retailing for $45 at the island pharmacy. Basic insect repellent, over $30. Buying these essential items on the island results in a genuine 300% markup. Prepare ahead or pay dearly for being forgetful.
Okay, let's move to safety, which is a non-negotiable factor in any Whitsunday planning. We need to clearly differentiate between human safety and what we've dubbed nature crime.
Right. Hamilton Island is physically very safe when it comes to human crime. It's a clean, regulated, secure environment. That monopoly structure really minimizes risk from external human factors. But nature crime, as we established, is constantly high.
The cockatoos are the prime suspects.
They are the primary criminal element, capable of opening zippers and invading balconies. You have to lock your glass doors and never ever leave food unattended outside, even for 30 seconds. But the serious, life-threatening danger, the real invisible threat in the water, is the stingers.
We are talking about irukandji jellyfish. And they are tiny, nearly invisible, about the size of your thumbnail, but incredibly potent and potentially lethal. And they're responsible for one of the most frightening associated symptoms a doctor can diagnose.
Yes. The irukandji are part of the box jellyfish family, and a sting can cause just excruciating systemic pain, muscle cramps, dangerous hypertension. In severe cases, the venom can cause impending doom syndrome.
And we have to stress, this is a recognized, real medical symptom.
It is. The victim feels an intense, profound, and often paralyzing sense of psychological dread and impending death, even if their physical status is stabilizing. It's a terrifying dual physical and mental trauma.
That raises the anxiety level significantly. What is the seasonality of this threat, and how do people practically mitigate it?
Stinger season is traditionally defined as November through May, which coincides with the wet, hotter season. But, ocean conditions are dynamic, and they can appear anytime. The rule of thumb in this part of Queensland is non-negotiable. Swimming without protection is simply not advised outside of designated netted areas. And even then, protection is wise.
So what does mandatory protection look like? A big suit?
It means wearing a stinger suit. If you go on an organized boat tour to the Outer Reef or Whitehaven, they will provide a full-body stinger suit as part of the cost. If you're swimming off Cat's Eye Beach, you could either wear a full-body rash guard or, more reliably, rent a specialized suit from the beach shack there.
And these are just thin Lycra suits?
Yeah, they're thin, Lycra-based, and they cover your limbs and torso. You do not try to be the hero in a bikini during potential stinger season.
Right.
The risk far outweighs the desire for a perfect photo or the inconvenience of the suit.
We also have to acknowledge the other major ocean residents that contribute to this cautious environment. Sharks are always present in the Great Barrier Reef waters. And while attacks are rare on Hamilton's main protected beaches, there have been very serious incidents nearby, specifically citing Sid Harbor in the Whitsundays. So general water safety rules apply here, maybe even more so than in other parts of Australia. Avoid swimming at dawn or dusk on those main unprotected beaches.
And finally, we need to address comfort safety, particularly for those who followed the Phil hack and booked a cheaper holiday rental. High humidity is relentless, particularly in the shoulder and wet seasons.
Oh, it's brutal.
It is. If you book cheaper accommodation via Airbnb or some other way, you must confirm the quality and strength of the air conditioning. Weak or broken AC combined with 90% humidity is a recipe for absolute misery and will severely impact your holiday. You are paying a premium for comfort. You have to ensure the core infrastructure delivers.
Now that we've navigated the minefield of logistics and safety, let's talk about the payoff. When we reviewed the experiences, what were the absolute best moments that justified the costs, and what were the biggest disappointments that underlined that poor value proposition?
I will start with the best moment that requires the biggest splurge, but delivers on that screensaver promise: the helicopter tour over Heart Reef and Hill Inlet.
Brutally expensive, yes, likely running into hundreds and hundreds of dollars per person. But here's where it gets really interesting. Seeing the spectacular swirling sands of Hill Inlet from the air, that perfect fusion of white silica and vibrant turquoise water, that is the iconic screensaver image of Australia.
And it lived up to the hype.
It absolutely lived up to the hype and the expense. It's a moment of pure, unadulterated photographic memory that you just cannot replicate from the ground. You are buying the view, but the view is perfect.
But then, the best free moment, the one that gave the most profound sense of value, was entirely earned.
Hiking up to Passage Peak.
Yes.
And that is a legitimate grind. It's a hard vertical hike with hundreds and hundreds of stairs, and it's particularly punishing in the high humidity. You feel every single step, and you arrive at the top just sweating profusely. It is not an easy walk. It is a serious physical commitment.
But the payoff is immense. The view from Passage Peak gives you a 360-degree turquoise panorama of the entire Whitsundays archipelago. It provides a sense of ruggedness, of immersion, and of achievement that the manicured resort environment often lacks.
It feels like you had to physically earn the view.
Exactly. and that imbues it with this immense, lasting value. It balances that suburb with palm trees feeling with a reminder that wild nature is still right there.
My personal culinary highlight, and this was a rare moment of fiscal peace that felt truly Australian, was the meat pie at the bakery near the marina.
The humble meat pie.
It was reasonably priced compared to the $40 mains. It was hot, flaky, and it provided that genuinely satisfying quality Australian snack that felt entirely divorced from the typical price gouging of the island's resort restaurants. It was a simple pleasure, but a necessary reset.
On the flip side, the major disappointment was really the architecture and the overall value proposition of the mid-range lodging, specifically the Reef View Hotel.
The big one.
It's this enormous concrete structure that just dominates the skyline. From certain angles at the rear, it looks a bit like a Soviet block. And for a room priced at $400 plus a night, finding chipped furniture, dated decor, or slow institutional elevators, it just feels insulting.
The expectation of luxury for that price is just not met.
Not at all. The hotel experience is purely functional. And generalizing that disappointment, the overall food quality. We talked about having to book 3 months out, but even once you get a spot, the food is overwhelmingly resort food.
It is mass-produced.
Mass-produced, often lacking local flavor or creativity, and even at the supposedly nicer places, you feel that distinct pressure of tables being turned every hour. Travelers do not come to Hamilton Island seeking a culinary awakening. You come for the view, the water, and the convenience, and your palate will reflect that reality.
So, if the logistical constraints and the high costs of Hamilton Island are now making you seriously hesitate, we need to provide some alternatives. Where else should our listeners go depending on their specific travel goals? We have 4 excellent, distinct options.
And these 4 alternatives provide a complete contrast to the Hamilton Island model. They cater to very different budgets and very different desires.
Okay, option 1, Airlie Beach.
This is the definitive backpacker and budget choice. Airlie is a fun, lively party town on the mainland. It's the gateway to the Whitsundays. It has a massive, beautiful artificial beach lagoon that provides safe, stinger-free swimming.
And most importantly, for the budget traveler.
This is the hub where you can organize those multi-day sailing trips on retired racing yachts. A genuine adventure experience for the price of one single night on Hamilton Island. If your goal is budget adventure and socialization, you go to Airlie.
What's the experience like on one of those sailing trips compared to staying on Hamilton?
Oh, it's immersive and communal. You're sharing meals, you're sleeping in cabins, and you get dropped directly onto Whitehaven Beach when none of the day trippers are there. You see the true wilderness, the stars at night. Hamilton Island, by contrast, feels like a managed theme park. The sailing trips are the raw, authentic Whitsundays adventure.
Okay, option 2, Daydream Island.
This is the perfect family choice, especially for families with younger kids. It's much smaller than Hamilton, it recently underwent extensive renovations, and it's highly focused on a contained, kid-friendly experience. It has a fantastic living reef in the hotel lobby.
I've heard about this.
It's a massive educational marine display, a great teaching tool. And the island is less town-like and more purely resort-like, which makes the logistics simpler for parents who don't want to navigate steep hills or golf buggy traffic.
Right. Option 3, Port Douglas.
This is the ideal adult and culinary choice. It's significantly further north, near Cairns, and it offers a sophisticated, true tropical village feel. It gives you access not only to the outer Great Barrier Reef, and the northern reef system is arguably even healthier than the Whitsundays, but also to the ancient Daintree rainforest.
And crucially for foodies.
Crucially, because it is a functioning mainland town with multiple independent operators, the quality of the restaurants in Port Douglas is miles better than the resort food on Hamilton. It's the choice for travelers who prioritize excellent dining alongside nature.
And option 4, for those travelers who hear our analysis and say, I just want the true, quiet luxury I was envisioning.
Then you go to Lizard Island or Badara. If you are seeking that secluded, genuinely private, world-class luxury experience that many people mistakenly think Hamilton offers, you need to go to these private islands. But you need to be prepared for a 5-figure budget for a short stay. This is the true, exclusive version of the Whitsundays luxury experience, completely divorced from the crowds and the logistics jolt of Hamilton.
All right, time for the moment of truth. Let's run the final verdict matrix. I'll name the traveler, and you give the definitive verdict based on our entire analysis.
Ready to deliver the final claims.
First up, the backpacker. Budget of $50 a day, seeking community and adventure.
Verdict's T. Hard no. You cannot exist here on that budget. You will be hungry, you will be miserable, and you will be stranded by the early evening ferry time. This island is financially hostile to you. You must go to Airlie Beach and book a sailing trip. End of story.
Okay, the mid-range couple. Budget of $250 a day per person, desiring convenience and maybe a boutique feel.
Verdict. Proceed with caution. It is only worth it if you commit to the trap avoidance strategies we laid out. Pre-book every single dinner 3 months out, and treat the island as a highly functional, expensive base for your necessary excursions.
And what about their expectations?
If you expect 5-star luxury for that price, you will be disappointed by the dated rooms and the crowds. We strongly recommend the Palm Bungalows over the high-rise hotel for a slightly better, more private vibe. And you must adhere to the Phil hack. Cook your own breakfast and lunch.
Next, the family trip. Their priority is safety and seamless logistics.
The verdict T, yes. The premium price is worth the convenience. Direct flights, excellent medical center access, paved paths that are perfect for strollers, and safe, shallow water. It makes the logistics for children so much easier than coordinating ferries and mainland travel. The efficiency justifies the cost.
And finally, the luxury traveler. Budget of $1,500 a night or more, prioritizing exclusivity.
Verdict, yes, conditional. Only if they commit to staying at Qualia or the Yacht Club villas. These areas are physically and socially separated from the congestion and the crowds of the main resort area. If they make the mistake of staying in the mid-range hotel, they will be immensely annoyed by the congestion and the poor value proposition of the Central Island.
So, synthesizing all of that, what is the overall final summary of Hamilton Island?
Hamilton Island is fundamentally a logistics hub masquerading as a paradise. It is undeniably beautiful, it is severely convenient, and it is vastly overpriced because of the monopoly effect. It's Australia Light, a highly processed, easily digestible, and convenient version of the Whitsundays experience designed for maximum efficiency.
So is it worth it?
It is worth it only for a short, functional 3 to 4 day trip if accessibility is your #1 priority above all other considerations.
And the absolute best time to go, avoiding the maximum crowds and the worst of the stingers.
Stick to the shoulder season, late May or early September. And avoid Australian school holidays at all costs. You will find a dramatically less crowded and more enjoyable experience.
That is the complete deep dive into the costs, the constraints, and the cocktail prices of Hamilton Island. We've established that the necessity of planning and budgeting against that monopoly effect is your true key to happiness here.
As a final thought for you to mull over as you plan your next trip, we found that the best free moments, like that panoramic view from Passage Peak, required significant physical effort, sweat and hundreds of stairs. Conversely, the most expensive moments, like the Heart Reef helicopter tour, delivered that perfect screensaver image instantly, but for a brutal cost. So what does it say about modern travel that the best value and the most authentic sense of achievement are found either in a free, sweaty hike or a brutally expensive private tour, with the overpriced, mass-produced middle ground being the zone of highest disappointment?
Something profound to consider as you weigh effort against cost on your next vacation budget. Watch out for the organized crime syndicate with wings and book that buggy today.